Alrighty. I think we're good to go. Oh man. Doesn't look like the mic is up. Wonder if there's a way to test audio feedback. No, that's not it. That's not quite it either. Oh, let's see here. Edit. What's this? I can tag a live stream. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, looks like it's picking up something. All right, if you guys can't hear me, let me know in the chat and I'll see what I can do. But dang, live streaming with this new webcam is so cool because the quality of the video is so much better than when I make YouTube videos. It's absolutely amazing how crisp I look. It's also interesting how, like, when I'm recording here, I can like see other details that I don't see when I record. It's as though the YouTube Live is totally different here. So as you can see over here, my webcam's actually working properly. That's my collection of Fire Emblem memorabilia. Let's just get this all set. Let's see, what's this option here? Okay, we don't need that. So, what I really like about this new house is that it has kind of a cozy log cabin, but not a log cabin feel to it. Like, it kind of feels like I'm up north at my uncle's place, but I'm not. I'm actually just in a different area than I was before. And the basement is not the typical grungy, annoying place that most basements are. It's more or less a family room. And really, you wouldn't necessarily notice that it was a basement unless if you looked at the walls, because it has such a living room kind of feel to it. Then the living room, now the living room has these really cool curtains that have like trees on them, so it almost feels like you're stepping into a forest full of lovely trees. And then the backyard isn't too special, but at least it doesn't seem to have the whole host of root and plumbing problems that the old place did. I haven't gotten to explore the neighborhood too much just yet because it's the cold time of the year, but the little bit that I have explored of the area, there's like this really, really beautiful hiking trail where you get to walk over a waterfall, and there's a grading. And as I'm walking on the grading, it gives the illusion that I'm actually walking on the waterfall, which just, it kind of boggles my mind how that works. And then there's a library, which I have a love-hate relationship with it at the moment. Like, on one hand, it's really cool that this library allows me to rent video games. But on the other hand, what's also not cool is the fact that they didn't seem to notice when I turned in the video games. So I really hope they don't charge me money for things that I already turned in. And then there's also a swimming pool that is dirt cheap. Like, if any of you guys decide to come over and visit me, or if you already live in the area, you are gonna be in a life of luxury. Wait a minute, maybe that's the problem. Did I turn off my microphone? Let's see, is that working now? What the heck? All right, let's see if that works any better. So yeah, so the pool only costs $3 if you're not a resident of the town and $2 if you are. So hypothetically, if you weren't from around here and you went swimming with just me, that would only cost $5. I mean, that's like a steal of a price. There's also a lake nearby, so if the people around here aren't really the indoor swimming types, then there's always the possibility of going to a nice sandy shore that has, swings and a park right next to it. So that could be a good way to dry off. And overall, it just seems like the kind of place where once the weather starts getting really nice, I'll really love exploring the area a whole lot. Now, the only thing that I don't particularly like about this new house is the fact that the walls are very thin, so it's usually really easy to be overheard. That's a little bit of an adjustment, but what new place doesn't have an adjustment? Compared to my old place, this new house is a paradise. The old house was very much heavily converted to try to hold my stupidly large family, and we had to make a lot of compromises to how the average American would live because we had to accommodate for being way bigger than the target audience of the house. But now, like, this place feels like it was tailor-made for our specific needs. And my room just feels it feels like my room. It doesn't feel like a space that we desperately forced to become my space. Oh, look, one more person has joined the chat. So welcome, mysterious other person. I hope you have enjoyed my channel so far. And if you don't, I hope you'll give me feedback on what I'm not doing so great so that I can improve in the future. How are you today? Yeah, so we've basically just been talking about how much I love my new house and how, like, my best friend now lives in Tiki? For real? Oh, wow. Dang, welcome. The same Tiki that I know, or like a totally different Tiki? Because if you're the Tiki from Danganronpa, wow, that's amazing. So glad you can be here in person. Have you ever actually seen me before, or have you just seen me in live streams? But yeah, oh, some of you might be wondering what's the deal with this t-shirt. So I actually got this on my second mission trip. The theme of it was Soul Live Uncovered. And oh, that's nice. You probably just had a different name and I probably just mistook it because it seems like you change your name a lot. How have you been doing lately, by the way? It seems like I never get a chance to ask you that in the live streams. I don't really remember how the theme related that much to the actual mission trip, but I just remember that when they said the theme is Soul, Live Uncovered, my brother actually designed this shirt, and he said, if we're trying to figure out where the soul is, then why don't we make it like a treasure map? Because the treasure map uncovers the goods. So progress report on Danganronpa. I am well, now that no one else is here, I guess I can totally spoil it. But basically, I am still at the strawberry/grape house. Just got past the final dead room with Nagito. And now we're back to Hajime's perspective. All the boys just got their food. And I think we're about to go to the elevator. It's been a while. I've been preoccupied by other people on YouTube, but I'm definitely going to try to binge watch Goodbye Despair as much as possible in case there are spoilers in whatchamacallit, Killing Harmony. Now, keep in mind, I know absolutely nothing about Killing Harmony besides the title, that it's amazing, and what I've seen in the streams, so I do hope you won't spoil it, but I'm liking it so far. The art style at first took a little bit of getting used to. Like, it kind of felt like I was playing a whole new game at first because I was like, wait, what the heck? Like, is this even a Danganronpa game? Is this a spinoff like Ultra Despair Girls? Now, Ultra Despair Girls, as far as my progress on that game, I got as far as the arena battle, and then we just got past that. And then I think at that point I realized, I kind of want to see Trigger Happy Havoc first because I feel like that would put more perspective into what I'm seeing here. Because when I first watched Ultra Despair Girls, I didn't know who Toko was. And I knew who Nagito was, but like I didn't fully know why he was acting so mysterious. So I thought, I'm missing a lot of context. I should probably. So, what would you say makes, without spoiling too much, what would you say makes Ultra Despair Girls so much worse than the other three that you just mentioned? Because I personally don't really like the gameplay style. I think it's very mature, but I can definitely see the story being somewhat promising. One thing that's really weird about Toko is that she has a habit of always being mad at people for being inappropriate, yet she's the most inappropriate person in the game. So it's like, if you really hate something, then don't do it yourself. You talk about other people being indecent, but yet you're making indecent comments. As far as my thoughts on Trigger Happy Havoc, um, how do I put it into a succinct? Ah, yes. Spin-offs do that. Like, Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival is my example of where I hated the fact that they took it in a whole new direction. In fact, one of my friends was actually so shocked by how different Amiibo Festival was that she hadn't even heard of it. And then when I told her about it, she said, "Is this even a real game?" I was like, "Unfortunately, yes." Excuse me. But yes, my thoughts on Trigger Happy Havoc. I really liked the, I don't want to call it dating aspect, but the socializing. I really liked being able to talk to the students. I thought the mystery was really well done. I was a bit miffed that Pegasus had already been spoiled, but like I blocked most of the chat. What's you basically? Could you clarify that for a minute? Oh, were you the one that spoiled the mastermind in Trigger Happy Havoc? Because I actually didn't see that post. Pegasus is just like the friend I talked about? Huh. I'm afraid I don't know what you're getting at. Maybe it's because I'm talking too fast. Let me slow down a little bit. So, in Trigger Happy Havoc, there was a person that spoiled to Pegasus who the mastermind was, and I actually didn't see that message, or if I did, I forgot, or I thought it was sarcasm. And then Pegasus kept saying in later streams, like, "Oh my gosh, the mastermind is," and I was just like, that stinks. I really did not want to know who the mastermind was. I wanted to be totally surprised, but at least I was surprised with how they pulled off the twist. And I liked the, well, now I really don't want to say too much in case there's like a newbie. Oh. Oh, okay. I see. So when did you start watching Pegasus's streams? I'll slow down a bit so that you don't have so much to type really fast. Because I started watching Pegasus's streams, I think it was either early 2020 or late 2019. Oh, the Octo expansion. Yeah, if you think she is bad at those Splatoon games, I am by far way worse. Like, I would probably come in last place in any competition. Because I tried playing Splatoon 1 and I couldn't get past World 2 of the story mode. And then I tried playing Splatoon 2 and I think I barely got to World 3. But like shooters just aren't really my thing. I'm more or less more of an adventure slash RPG slash action. Scratch that. Very much a visual novel detective kind of guy. So when I walked into Pegasus's Goodbye Despair stream, I remember thinking, man, this kind of reminds me a lot of Ace Attorney and Zero Escape. Speaking of Zero Escape, how far have you gotten in catching up on Virtue's Last Reward? Because I think you would really like it a lot. Because Clover comes back, and there's a couple of other little nods to the previous game as well. By the way, it is totally normal for my streams to have low attendance, but I actually don't mind that in the slightest because it allows me to focus more on every single person that's talking. Oh, that's really a shame. Well, you'll be glad to know that Virtue's Last Reward is considerably tamer on the violence end, but it's also more intense in terms of the subject matter. So if you're the type of person that, I don't want to say too much without spoiling it, but it's much more relevant. I'll just say that. Clover is back, so that's pretty cool, even though she's gotten a radical makeover. Um, there's also a character named Alice, but whether or not it's the same Alice that was mentioned in 999, I will leave that up to your interpretation. But I will say that she looks literally identical to the images that are shown whenever Alice is talked about. And also, the flow chart has been vastly improved to the point where I don't even really have to help Pegasus at all. Like, I've just given her the slightest of nudges. Like, I'll just say, you need to wait to get past that part, or go ahead and go wherever you want. Because basically, because you know how in 999 you'd have to, like, do very specific choices in a very specific order to get a very specific ending? Well, now you can rewind back to any decision. And then every single combination of decisions that you can imagine leads to a whole new ending. So as a result, it leads to a lot more replay value, a lot more game overs, and a lot more of Pegasus just feeling completely destroyed when she decides to be a completionist. Because there's a lot of game overs that are completely pointless, and it usually involves making a blatantly stupid choice. And Pegasus is just like, I'm a completionist, I gotta get everything. And then the game's just telling her she's such an awful person for that. So I really can't wait for her to get to Zero Time Dilemma and and really feel bad, because that game really pulls at your emotional heartstrings. But one thing that I think you'll like about Virtue's Last Reward is, I know you didn't watch all of the 999 stream, but for the most part, Virtue's Last Reward is a pretty standalone game. It doesn't have too many references to 999, and the few that it does are more so of just fan service than actually required to understand the story. A lot of times they'll like skim over major plot points because the story of VLR is so self-contained that you could probably play the game first and it wouldn't really matter. Zero Time Dilemma, on the other hand, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but it that game definitely builds off the last two, but VOR was actually marketed with the Zero Escape brand. So when oh, well, I don't want to distract you if you're studying, so you don't feel like you have to stick around. The little bit that you have stuck around is really, really great. What do you mean by when you say you're virtual, by the way? Because isn't it second nature that when you're on a chat stream that you're automatically virtual? I haven't been to school in so many years, so I have no idea how most school systems work. And not only that, but like when I was in school, there was no such thing as taking classes online. At least if there was, no one talked about it. So it really amazes me how people can like be studying and yet watch YouTube at the same time. I really have no idea how you guys even do that. That's really amazing. Oh, I see. So you're taking online classes. That's very nice. If you don't mind me asking, what are you studying? When I was in school, I didn't have a very specific study set. Like I wasn't going into anything in particular, but my favorite subjects were English, science, and religion. And I also really loved like switching history books because there was like one that was written by a Protestant and one that was written by a Catholic. And like the one book would say this person was really terrible and idiotic, and the other person was like an amazing person. So it's like, wow, difference in religion really affects history. Just normal. Oh, artwork. That's cool. Hey, if you happen to, how do I word this? If you happen to have art of my YouTube channel, I would really love to see a link of it because you'd be surprised how many people don't make art of me. But the few people that do, they usually love to exaggerate the things that they know that I like. So, like, one of the finest pieces of art that I've ever seen of me came from two of my buddies, Matt and Danielle. You've probably seen them a lot if you're a regular on my channel. It was such an elaborate drawing that I don't even know if I can describe it justice, but basically there was like a pizza UFO, because that's my favorite food, that was like shooting beams of epic at everyone, and then I was like blocking them with a lightsaber, and I had like ridiculously long hair, like way longer than this. And then like because I like to talk about personality types, like each person's t-shirt had the letters of their Myers-Briggs type on it, and I was just like, wow, I didn't even ask for this. This is really cool. So just out of curiosity, do do you actually make YouTube videos on your channel, or did you just create this profile so that you could watch YouTube? Well, I it's been a while since someone called me pretty, so go for it. Oh, you do? Do you think I would like any of them? I would like to check your art in the Pegasus Discord, but because I chaperone a lot of youth conferences, I'm afraid of doing a really stupid move that'll prevent me from being able to chaperone in the future. So I just have to fine tune what are like the do's and don'ts of an online forum that isn't age restricted. But if I manage to figure that out, then I'd love to see it. So yeah, what are your videos about? Ah, I see. Do you do reviews at all? Because those tend to be my favorites. I'm not usually the type of person that gets overly perturbed by people dying. Usually the only times I cry from a death are if the death reminds me of a terrible event in my own past. Like when I was playing Virtue's Last Reward, I think I only cried maybe twice. And both of those weren't so much because of the death, it was more so just it was overly familiar. Oh, random stuff. Okay, well, it really depends on the YouTuber, but some YouTubers do a really great job when they post random stuff. Like, there is one guy who's pretty active for quite a while. His name is That Rat Wears Hats, and his Undertale streams were so unpredictable, and I really loved that about him. And I also really love it when YouTubers don't put themselves in a box and they kind of just, oh, that's cool. 20K subs. Don't know if I'll ever get to that point. Well, I definitely want to check out your channel. Just be aware that I have a tendency to be a little bit too honest in my feedback. So if you're the type of person that doesn't take constructive criticism very well, you might want to just say, Paul, stay far, far away from my channel because I can't handle your brutality. There was even one time I was so honest that I was on another person's stream and I was like, you're a cool streamer, but you're nowhere near as cool as this other person. No, not a problem, not a problem. So, Tiki has a YouTube channel. That's really cool. By the way, if anyone watches this stream late and you haven't met Tiki before, she generally joins on a lot of the streams for a YouTuber called Pegasus Angels Gameplay. Let me just write that down. And she streams the Zero Escape games. And I actually, well, you all know this, but Zero Escape is like my favorite franchise. So I bought her the Zero Escape trilogy, and I was really, really, really excited that I could finally see one of my favorite games on the big screen. Because I'm a Nintendo only guy, so usually my streams are pretty they depend on how long my voice goes, but considering that I have this much water left, I can see myself going for at least an hour or two. So whatever you need to do, that's totally fine. And a lot of people watch my streams late, so that I'll just keep talking. You can chime in whenever. If I say something particularly relevant, I'll just type it in the chat. So as I was saying, because I'm a Nintendo guy, the only platform I can play the Zero Escape games on is my 3DS. By the way, oh, okay. Well, we'll do whatever you need to do. It's been a while since I've been in school, so hey, that would actually be pretty cool. If you could explain to me like how schools are, I don't want to give away my exact age, but like what are some of the biggest differences between online schooling and schooling in person? So this 3DS cover, for those of you that don't know, I actually got this because I was one of the only people in the world to pre-order the special edition of Fire Emblem Fates. And I really liked Fates at the time, but ever since then, I've grown to kind of hate that game. Not so much as a strategy game, but more of just like it really butchered the Fire Emblem franchise. Like it had just way too much fan service in the wrong kind of way. Now, I'm not the type of person who's a prude. Obviously, I'm not a prude if I play Zero Escape. But I do think that there should be a limit. Like you don't want to just show and do everything just because you can. You want to be prudent. And I think Fates was just like prudence. Who needs that? People like anime. It's like people like Fire Emblem for being Fire Emblem, they don't want it to cross over into anime territory. And it's good that Intelligent Systems finally got the message because Three Houses managed to be so epic that I like it even better than Radiant Dawn. So, is it weird because you're not speaking to people in I think you accidentally made a typo there because it's just random characters on my screen. So if you could resend your message, that would be much appreciated. I think I would actually do pretty well if I did online classes, if they were explained really well. Because from what I've heard, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I always found schools to be kind of scary because I felt like you would define a lot of your identity by the people that you're around. And I didn't want to be that type of person that bowed down to peer pressure and was constantly, "Oh, are you Catholic as well? That's really cool. That is amazing. I did not know that." Oh, wow. So that's why you joined my streams. I never would have guessed that. Well, thank you for the like, whoever did that. That's much appreciated. Not that likes really mean anything to me, but it's just nice to know that because I'm one of the few live streamers that doesn't know how to stream video games or movies, that me just blabbing in front of camera doesn't bore you guys to death. Because I'm always concerned that because I'm not naturally good at reading other people's emotions, that I won't know when a person is getting bored or hearing like, "Oh, Paul, you're talking too much." Which is ironic because I tend to be the type of person that prefers observing first, speaking later. Yeah, I really that's why I never went to college because I just said, "You know what? I don't want people to tell me who I am and what to believe. I want to join whatever system is the truth." And who knows? Maybe I'm wrong about Catholicism. I highly doubt it. But I don't want to be big-headed enough to say that I know everything. But credit where credit is due. I also at the same time, oh, all right, yeah, see ya. Thanks for hanging around as long as you did. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so in college, like you could be a practicing Catholic and then you're surrounded by people that aren't Catholic, and then they basically kind of force you to like go their way and they'll do what's called peer pressure and try to force you to do what's the norm. You have to be cool. And it's like, my definition of cool is being myself and rocking my hairstyle. Now, I know my hair is hit or miss. I have people that hate my hair with a passion, and I've got people that love it and can't see me any other way. But if I were to go to college, I would probably, excuse me, I would probably be overburdened to try to have to change it because that's not cool, Paul. You look too much like a girl. And it's like, I've gotten that my whole life, even before my hair was this long. So, you know what? If you guys want to think that, I honestly don't care. Like, to be honest, I think people mistaking my gender doesn't bother me as much as most people would, because I know that's a big deal nowadays, is like, if you say someone's a guy and they're actually a girl, then they throw like this big hissy fit because apparently the pronouns matter. But I don't get bothered by it as much just because it's amusing to see like, okay, how little have you studied about anatomy that you could make that mistake? Because you all know that guys have more prominent Adam's apples than girls do. Not to say girls don't have Adam's apples, but they're shaped differently, so it looks as though they don't have one, but it's really just it's a lot more smooth. And so I don't know. Maybe it's because when I talk, my like chin goes down, but I don't know how you could miss an Adam's apple this big. And of course, it looks small with the webcam because webcams make everything out of proportion. But I really don't see how this is a girl's throat at all. Also, not to mention these eyebrows are like they're obviously super untouched. Um, I don't have like the perfect hygiene, and my shoulders are like very rocky and platy. So I guess it's more of just like an amusing, okay, okay, okay. You think I'm a girl? Okay, well, let's see how let's see how wrong you really are. But I guess that also proves a point that my mom told me a long time ago. Because I'm the type of person that I have a tendency of tending to overlive a lot of both the greatest and the worst moments in my life effortlessly just because I have a really good memory. But my mom says, Paul, most people in the world aren't nearly as observant or nearly as living in the past as you are. So there are quite a few people that hardly remember stuff that I'm still super embarrassed about. And a lot of people also don't really have a whole lot of, um, I lost my train of thought. People don't have a lot of observation skills. So there have been times where I'll have like not gotten a haircut for like 6 months. And my friends will come up to me and say, oh, your hair looks so much shorter. And I'll be like, shorter? I haven't gotten a haircut in 6 months. What the heck are you talking about? So it goes to show you that people are people are so immersed in their own problems that a lot of times those problems take over common observation skills. And so as a result, that's why it amuses me how people can come to the totally wrong conclusion about just about anything. But I'm the type of person that also really likes facts to be correct. So I would probably step in and say, you're wrong. Hey, Paulism for life. Good to see you again. I'll never be able to pronounce it. But welcome back. I was hoping you'd show up to these streams one of these days. I was having so many technical difficulties in my old house, so I'm really glad to be at this new place. Furim, got it. Oh, that's. It kind of sounds like Skyrim. Was that what you were inspired by any chance? So, I don't know if you caught the earlier bit of the stream, but I was actually talking about how much I really love this new house. This is my bedroom, by the way, and it just feels like it's totally me. The only problem I really have with it is the fact that the walls are really thin, so it's really easy to be overheard. But it's not like I can hear any of you guys, so it doesn't really matter. But like, say if I'm on the phone with a friend, then that would be a problem because if I'm trying to have a private conversation or if I'm or if I'm talking about something that I don't want others to hear, that can be a bit of a pain. Mm. So have you so what's been up with you lately? Furim, have you been doing anything super cool or epic lately? Because obviously, I've been pretty busy lately. Not as busy as I used to be in my old house because transferring is a bit of a pain, but I'm working on it very, very slowly. Oh, that's right. I forgot to mention. Hey, that's actually a really good thing to say because there are so many people that just want to give up on existence because this pandemic is just so. Oh wow, that's cool. I couldn't make a hat. If I tried to make a hat, I'd probably make it look like a piece of vomit because I can't make art to save my life. I got a new phone. except it's one of these primitive flip phones. So just to compare it, this was my old phone, and here's the new phone. So size-wise, they're pretty darn similar. This one can no longer make calls, but I'm keeping it just in case there's like a scrappers market or something. And as far as this phone, it's just a plain old background, so it's not like you're getting any personal information. But there are a couple of things to get used to on this new buddy, but there's also a lot of really cool conveniences. Like instead of having every individual text from my friends be one message, now it has every individual conversation. So let's say that Nick has sent me 6 messages. Then all the messages from Nick will be in the Nick conversation tab. So it allows for my, well, I don't text very much to begin with, but it allows for the people that I do text to be much more neat and organized. Also, I now have over 450 subscribers, so I mean, honestly, that doesn't mean a whole lot on my channel because what matters more to me is loyalty as opposed to the actual numbers. But I see it as pushing me ever closer to the coveted 500 subscriber celebration. I love making celebration videos, so I mostly do it just because I'm thankful for the loyalty as opposed to trying to get big-headed and say, hey, I'm Paul, I'm famous. I'm actually kind of hoping I don't get too many subscribers just because I don't want to get to the point where like a lot of big YouTubers have a tendency to um, like ignore the comments section because either the comments get too repetitive or they just don't have time to respond to all of them because they get so many. I would like to be able to give my full attention to every single person that comments appropriately on my videos. And I would also like to think that my live streams and my videos are more or less like a fireside chat. Like we're just sitting down, grabbing some iced tea or whatever drink you prefer, and just being like, hey, what's up, guys? Let's just chat and chill. And now, when I put the title of this live stream as chatting and chilling, it was actually a reference to the weather, as there's not too much snow where I live, but there's just enough where I would say you can't exactly call this warm. Now, I know I'm wearing a t-shirt, but that's because we have a thermostat, so that works. Although I did wake up freezing cold, so my room has a mind of its own sometimes. So Firam, what yeah, we get a lot of snow where I'm from. We don't get so much that it's like up to my waist or anything, but we get enough where we're definitely one of the colder states. I was gonna ask you, like, what Catholic stuff do you have in your area? Because where I live, they actually had to shut down one of my favorite conferences, or at the very least, they shut down the planning team for it because they lost funds due to COVID happening. No, I'm not afraid to say coronavirus because this stream isn't monetized. I'm not making any money off of my channel. Oh, that reminds me. I should probably tell this to you guys. If you folks see ads on my videos, please get an ad blocker. YouTube is violating, well, I wouldn't say violating. Yeah, that's a good way of wording it. I did hear that it was based on a conspiracy theory, but I don't like engaging in theories most of the time unless I'm 100% certain that I'm going to be right. Yeah, if you guys are seeing ads on my videos, I am really sorry. I don't want ads on my videos. I don't like watching ads to begin with. So the fact that YouTube announced that they'd be putting ads even on videos that aren't monetized is just really annoying. Because I feel like people would just be, I don't know, they might be turned off by my content because they're ads, thinking that I'm, I don't know, money hungry corporate overlord, when really I don't know the first thing about corporations, except that a lot of them care more about the money than about the products. And that just makes me really sad because my channel name is the Catholic Nintendo Nerd. Nintendo's a corporation, and I've stuck with them, I'd like to say since longer than I care to admit. Yeah. Well, there are free ad blockers out there. You can just get one of those and block all of them if you want to watch my videos. Just know that if you see ads on my videos, they're definitely not me putting them on there. I don't want them. If I had my way, I'd sue YouTube for it. But yeah, so as I was saying, so one of my favorite conferences in my area was shut down, and that was a huge blow to me because that was the conference that got me out of depression. And the conference that happened in 2020, a month before the pandemic happened, I actually got to give a presentation to about 50 teenagers about how to overcome depression and how to, I guess, make the most out of a crummy life situation, because I haven't had the easiest life. Now, that's not to put blame on my family. My family has been amazing, and I'm so blessed to have my siblings and my parents and my siblings-in-law, but also other people have treated me like absolute trash. And I wanted to ensure the teenagers there that you can have foul things happen to you, but that doesn't mean that doesn't mean you should give up. Because if I had given up, there'd be a lot of really cool stories and insights that the world wouldn't be able to see anymore. Or at the very least, if they did see existing content, it would probably be cast in a negative light, kind of like how The Cosby Show was an amazing comedy show that a lot of people have stopped watching because Cosby himself was found guilty of lots of different things that I don't want to say on this channel, which is really a shame because I imitate Cosby all the time. And when people are like, ew, Cosby, Paul, you can't do that because Cosby's a terrible person, it's like, well, I get that he's a terrible person, but the show wasn't terrible. The show was hilarious. So it just makes me really upset that, like, say that were to happen to me, and say I did decide to give up on life because of all the hardships that happened to me. I think people would look at my messages of hope and don't despair and all that and just say, wow, well, Paul gave up, so why should I listen to a word he says? So it just doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, that's true. You don't want to be a hypocrite. Because if there's one thing I hate, it's when people have a tendency of not being aware of what they just said, and they kind of preach based on a guilty conscience. This is especially annoying in video games because I don't think the video game makers intended for the characters to be hypocrites. Because obviously, you know, they're writers. They can review their script and they can say, this character just said this 3 lines ago, and now they're contradicting each other. But it's just annoying how so many gaming characters like completely forget their own identities. And what's even weirder is in the Zero Escape series, sometimes they contradict each other in other timelines, which is really hilarious. So I just wish that I wish it was possible for people to at least try to develop their memories. Now, I know some people are just going to have a bad memory and there's nothing they can do about it, and that's fine. I'm not saying that you have to be this perfect superhuman. But a lot of people like just accept the fact that they have a bad memory and they don't try to take steps to improve. They're just like, I'm a scatterbrain, I'll just live with it. And it's like, Well, what if having a good memory actually saves your life one of these days? Would you really want to throw aside the possibility of a better outcome? I mean, it's good to accept who you are. Obviously, I don't want you to like be false or inauthentic. That would be terrible. But I do think to a certain extent, if you don't grow or develop at all, that can be even more dangerous. Hope you guys understand what I'm saying, because sometimes I don't even understand what I'm saying. But like, I actually used to have a really bad short-term memory, and then I took steps to try to fix it, and now I have one of the best memories of anyone. Would you like me to give you some tips on how to get a better memory? Because I'm the type of guy that remembers so much that I kind of wish I didn't. Like, I'm that guy that will think about stuff 15 years ago and still be able to remember it pretty clearly. Well, one of the first tips is what I call association. So if you're having trouble remembering something, try to compare it to something that you've already seen before. So for example, let's take, I don't know, this 3DS. So this is a new 3DS, and it also has Fire Emblem on it. So let's say that I'm trying to remember the cast of Fire Emblem Fates. Well, if I wanted to do that, then I'd try to compare each of these people to something related to the 3DS. Like I'd take Azura. So Azura has a pointy staff. I could say, you know what? That kind of reminds me of the 3DS stylus. So then that'll help me remember Azura better. Then let's take someone like Corrin. Corrin's character has no depth, which is also like the 3DS, or more specifically like the 2DS, because that doesn't have the depth of stereoscopic 3D. Or if you meet someone for the first time, try to think of how their name gives you a good association. Like, I think one time I met a girl named Luna, and I remember thinking, oh, Luna, that was a girl, that was one of the characters in Virtue's Last Reward. And she had a similar hairstyle to you. So then remembering that hairstyle in one of my favorite games helped me to remember her name better. Or if, actually, this is a true story, you might even remember exactly who I'm talking about. But I met a girl named Emma, and yeah, I always got her mixed up with another girl, but I didn't forget the name because Emma is the name of the main character in Once Upon a Time. And so obviously I wouldn't forget that because I'd be like, ooh, Emma Swan. Obviously, I love Emma Swan because Emma's like my role model most of the time, except when she lies. Then she's not. So association of other things that are familiar is one of the biggest steps to remembering things. I also think that carrying around a notebook and like constantly going over the facts over and over again really tends to help too. Like, for example, I made a video last year called the top 10 games of Hello, fourth person. Welcome to the stream. What can I do for you? So I made a list of the top 10 games that I reviewed in 2019. I'm actually working on one for 2020 as well. And so sometimes while I'm in bed, I'll just be like, Box, Three Houses, Ori and the Blind Forest, Kirby's Epic Yarn, Bowser's Inside Story, Super Mario Maker 2, Tetris 99, Ace Attorney Trilogy, Deltarune, Cadence of Hyrule. But then, of course, I won't use the notebook, so then I'll put it down and be like, Deltarune, Cadence of Hyrule, Box Boy, over and over again so that I keep remembering it. Lunar Octopus, welcome back. How have you been doing all this time? I don't think I've seen you since the pandemic happened, so how have you been coping? I don't know if you came into the stream on time, but I got a new phone and also a new room since the last time we talked. An EMT, that's a type of nurse or EMT. I'm trying to remember what that is. Isn't that emergency medical trainer? Well, either way, that's really cool. Especially coming from me, because I'm not really ambitious at all. So I'm kind of just living each day and hoping to get something good. But the good news is that I do have an idea of where I want to go next. Like, excuse me for a minute, folks. I'm going to turn on the fan because it's getting hot in here. Ugh. It's a really weird contradiction because, like, there's snow outside, but inside the thermostat has a mind of its own. So I don't know what's going on there. So, oh, emergency medical technician. Oh, I see. I see. So you must have like that kind of that type of personality where you can like react to an emergency situation on the spot. That's really admirable because I'm the kind of guy where if I'm in an unfamiliar situation, I'll just panic. Messy art. Oh, hello. If I'm not mistaken, you're the YouTuber that recommended me on that really cool Facebook group. I'm glad that you could make it here. How are you doing? So, folks, Messy Art Desk actually runs a Facebook group. I'll let her talk about it if that's her wish. But like she showcases Catholic YouTubers. So if you folks are Catholic, then maybe you can see if she can promote your channels too. Oh, okay, not a problem. I actually did watch a couple of the videos that you posted on that channel. Yep, that's the name of it. So if the rest of you watching this want to check out that link, that's where you can go if you want your channels promoted if they're Catholic. It is my stream, but because I'm doing 100% of the talking, I do want to make sure that you guys don't think I'm talking too much. I want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to say something. But I was going to say that I did watch a couple of the videos that you posted in that group. The one about the story of that girl that went to hell, but then she was given permission to come to her friend and tell her about hell. That was definitely pretty illuminating. And then the video about like what crucifixions are actually like, that's prompted a really great discussion with my brother because he actually ran a class at his religious ed that talked about like how crucifixions in media are very inaccurate to how they portray it. I got that mixed up. I have partial dyslexia. Crucifixions in movies are nowhere near as brutal as they are in real life. Like, if we were going to be 100% accurate to crucifixion, well, let's just say, first of all, the crucifixes in our actual churches would probably be nude. The feet would be on the sides of the cross rather than the front. Also, the tree would look a lot less refined because it would have, been rough around the edges, probably had twigs sticking out of it. Jesus would have been covered in way more blood. But the Catholic Church took certain liberties when making the crucifixes because they didn't want people distracted during Mass. So that's why we have a loincloth wearing Jesus that has hardly any blood on him, because people would just be too grossed out if they saw how brutal crucifixion actually was. So what have you been doing to survive in the pandemic lately, Messy Art Desk? And also Lunar Octopus. I haven't really gotten a chance to hear your... Yeah, the nails did go through the wrists because the Greek word that they used for hands is ambiguous and it could also mean wrist. But it was highly likely that it was the wrist because I forget the exact reasoning, but I think it was because like it would have been easier for Jesus to support himself through the wrists. Also, Jesus would have had like a wooden plank-like thing that he would sit on the cross, which you may think, oh, they're being generous. No, they're not being generous because Jesus would have been so fatigued that when he raised himself up to take a breath, then he wouldn't have had the grace to slowly like get back down in the seat, he would have like slammed down hard, and obviously without pants or anything to break the fall, that would have been really sore on his tailbone and other things. So if anything, they were just trying to make him even more sore. Oh, a fantasy novel. That's so cool, because I've written fantasy novels. I just haven't gotten any of them published because I don't want to. I don't want to start another Protestant Reformation with people misinterpreting my works. KFC. I've never worked at KFC in particular, but I did work at Culver's for a while. I had to quit because of the move, but I'm hoping that once I get this whole transferal thing sorted out, then I can transfer to the one nearby. There, the Red Buddha? I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. But welcome to the stream regardless. Just hope you're not going to be spamming things, assuming you didn't mean to, because I don't quite know who Dilly Bob is. So the Book of Tobit, I think the Book of Tobit is hilarious, and I think it's one of the most underrated books of the Bible. Like, it's a story about a guy who is sleeping outside and a bird poops in his eyes. So lesson learned, guys. If you're taking a nap outside, wear sunglasses. Helping parents with errands. That's really cool. I try to do that, but usually my parents say no when I ask them to help, but then they ask me to help. All right, see you later, Firam. Thank you for joining for so long. But then they ask me for help when I'm already busy. So it works out really well because I like helping people. So how are you doing, Red Buddha? Like, what are some of the things that you really like to do? Yeah, that is true. But I suppose they could have also, I don't know, didn't like even the men have hoods that they wore to keep them from getting hot? Like, couldn't they have like wrapped the hood around? Well, I guess he didn't anticipate a bird pooping in his eyes, so I guess that's a little bit of a stretch to try to think about that. I also think it's hilarious how the Book of Tobit is like a huge spoiler fest. Because, like, I don't think the author never let you see your friend Ben. That's a shame, because hanging out with friends is one of the biggest things that's helped me from regressing back into my depression. Just because I have a tendency to think too realistically, which oftentimes leads to ignoring emotions. And my friends are usually the ones that says, like, don't worry, Paul, you're actually a kind guy. You don't need to think that you're as mean as you think that you are. My live stream? Oh, absolutely. Go for it. Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem whatsoever. So, Red Buddha, I don't think you answered my question. What kind of things do you like to do in your spare time? Also, I have this much water left, guys, so we'll see how long my voice holds out. Oh, I see. So, if I'm understanding you correctly, Lunar Octopus, are you like... Now, try not to say too much, because my worst fear is needles, but do you have, like, insider information on potentially developing the vaccine for COVID? Because that would be really interesting if you found a way to cure it without needing to be poked, because that's like the one thing that makes me scream. Because I'm a big sissy when it comes to that. Silly me. I forgot to say what I've been up to besides moving into this house. One of the things that I've been really excited about is that I've been working on Pat Phelan. Who might that be? Oh, good. Much appreciated hearing you say there's no need for a vaccine because um, I had a vaccine when I was really little. And I don't want to give all the details, but let's just say that according to my mom, she said that I was never the same again after I took it. And I'm still experiencing the side effects to this day. What's a 5G? I'm not really an expert at math, so I don't really know where COVID comes from. I just know that I haven't gotten it yet. And if I have, I don't feel any different. No, I haven't had COVID. No, I have not. I don't even think I've gotten sick this year. I've gotten like a 24-hour flu before, but I don't think I've gotten like fully sick. I have a really good immune system, like such a good immune system that I've actually gone like a full year at a time without getting sick. I think it was all of 2018. I didn't get sick at all. I'm also that type of person where like I'll go to actually this is a true story. I went to a Catholic conference and there were like 19 people in our youth group and every single person was sick except for me. And then I don't remember all the details because that was like a long time ago, but I do remember that I think at most I might have had a little bit of a scratchy throat. But the rest of them were like so miserable that they were like leaning on each other's shoulders just to stand up. And the group picture was so embarrassingly awful that I was the only person in the picture who was like legitimately smiling out of joy. Everyone else was like either doing a fake smile or their mouth was half open. Or in the case of my best friend, he couldn't even fully open his eyes. Uh, my poor best friend. He was so he had such a bad time at that conference that his very first year he ended up getting food poisoning and then he threw up in the middle of the night and so he kept our youth group leaders awake because of that and so then he had to be sent home the next day which ended up being a blessing in disguise for me because I was even more shy than I already am back then and I was really freaking out because there were no other guys in the group besides me, and I didn't really know how to talk to girls back then. So it really helped me jump out of my comfort zone and really just get used to talking to people without clinging to my best friend. Oh, that's nice. Vegetarianism. The thing about vegetarianism for me is as you guys can probably tell I'm not the heaviest person in the world, so I'd I'd probably become even more skin and bones than I already am if I went to vegetarianism. But I admire anyone that does. I definitely don't approve of animal cruelty, but on the other hand, the Bible doesn't forbid eating meat either. So it's like Jesus ate meat, and they did other stuff to animals back in Bible days because they had to eat. So, Buddha, I'll leave that to you to figure out how to pronounce it. But if that's a nasal treatment, then maybe I wouldn't mind getting it. But on the other hand, I also highly doubt I'd need it just because I have such a good immune system. I don't even know who your mother is, so I won't tell. I think it depends on the order because I was actually talking to one of my friends about like different orders of sisterhood. Like there was one order of sisters that was like supposed to be more like the give away everything and live in destitution order. So like they weren't allowed to shave their legs, they weren't allowed to cut their hair, they weren't allowed to put on deodorant, and I think if they did take a bath, it was maybe like twice a year. So they really weren't allowed to take care of themselves. But then there was another order of sisters that was the total opposite, that they were all about like service and presentation to people. So they were required to keep up their appearances. So they had to shave their legs, they had to shower regularly, they had to keep their hair relatively trimmed. They had to, well, I don't know if they had to put on makeup, but they at least had to make it so that they didn't look like they were suffering. So it's really all up to the order. But I would say that from what I know of my former young adult group, which had a Franciscan friar as the leader, he said that I actually went in the pool myself. He actually has an Olympic-sized swimming pool in his old friary. And the reason why it was considered still living in poverty was because he didn't own it. It was gifted to him by members of the community. And he didn't choose it. He didn't say, hey, Father Superior, can I please have a friary where I get a pool? He didn't even swim in the pool the entire time. Oh yeah, see you around, Red Buddha. Good luck with your, however you pronounce that being thingamabob. So yeah, he had an Olympic-sized pool. He was allowed to watch DVDs. He even talked about Harry Potter, which it's like, whoa, you hardly ever see religious people talking about Harry Potter. So I know that priests don't have like the ultimate authority that the Pope does. But on the other hand, I would say they have more authority than the average layperson because they've, studied the stuff for 12 years straight, and they also didn't necessarily have the luxury of female companionship, which is the main reason why I find it a little bit unnerving to potentially join an order, just because I see myself as either wanting to get married or at the very least not abandoning my friends. And I can see both options being thrown out the window if the brotherhood or the priesthood was involved. I know a lot of people say I'd be good at it, but discernment, as much as you'd like to say it's a calling from God, it's also a feeling. Like, obviously, you don't want to go into something that's going to make you totally miserable. You want to at least have some kind of enjoyment out of it. But even if that's the case, I haven't felt called. I've felt called to be Paul. If Paulism is a vocation, that's what I'm called to do. And a lot of people have mentioned that me just being me has really helped them out a lot. So I don't want to toot my own horn. I'll let them toot the horn for me. They seem to appreciate what I do, and that wouldn't be possible if I had joined a cloistered brotherhood. Or not a cloister, because cloister means you can't really leave the monastery, whereas just a regular brotherhood means you go out into the community. I do know that friars and monks are very, very different. The friars are the ones that go out into the community, which is also the same with the sisters. The nuns and the monks are the ones that stay in the cloister. But I think it's generally a lot more common to see a monk than it is to see a nun, because nuns are like really cloistered. Whereas, yeah, exactly. I would feel the same. Like, I'm not the most social guy in the universe, but I would say that I do tend to miss my friends a lot. And so the times when I do socialize, I want to make sure that my friends know that I would never abandon them. So I usually prefer, like, I would say 2 hangouts a month is like my ideal amount of socializing that I need. And then if I get nothing else besides that, then I'll be good until the next month. If it's a conference month, maybe more like 4 days worth of socializing, and then I'm good. When you say you're not that introverted, could you explain that for a bit? Because I love talking about personalities on this channel. I used to think I was an extrovert just because I mistook the definitions, because extroverted means you get your energy from being around people, whereas introversion means you get your energy from introspection or from deep conversations. And I thought that I got energy from people, but I think what was actually happening was that I was outgoing, and that's totally different from being extroverted. And also just because I've had trouble speaking my whole life. And so I guess like I'm the type of guy that's like fight, don't flight. And so more often than not, rather than just giving up and saying this is too hard, I decided that I needed to talk to people just so that I could get out of the shell and not be burdened by my flaws. Well, actually, it's interesting that you say ambiverted because according to my studies, every person in existence is an ambivert. Like if you were 100% introvert, then you'd likely never, ever, ever socialize, which is terrible for anyone because that was the first thing that God said was not good, was man being alone. But on the other hand, if you were 100% an extrovert, when would you ever sleep? So every single person obviously has a balance. Some just happen to have more over the other. Like I know some introverts where if you put them in the right setting, then they can get energy from people. It's just that they'll have a very limited fuse. And then once that fuse goes off, they'll just be like, okay, this was fun, but I need to stop now. And there are some extroverts that after they finish socializing with people, they'll do stuff like take naps or watch TV as a way of like steadying their breathing. So if anything, it really all depends on how do I put this in as layman's terms as possible. Um, I think how you determine if you're an extrovert or an introvert is just like if you're around a lot of stimulation and a big group of people, and you find that you're feeding off of the socializing, and when it's over, you're kind of just like, oh man, now I need more people. And you get lonely a lot. And if you go too long without socializing, you start to have a panic attack. But if you're an introvert, then if you're around people for too long, you start to feel like you're overwhelmed. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I need somewhere to just be quiet. And then once you do get into that place of peace and quiet, then you stay in that for like weeks, if not months at a time. And you're just like, the comfort of my house, my bed, my things, my phone. Also, introverts have a tendency to prefer like smaller gatherings, like one-on-ones, one-on-twos, one-on-threes. They don't typically like things to be too loud. They don't typically like going to parties. And they typically have really wild ideas. Like if you ask an introvert like what's on their mind, they'll usually tell you that they have some insanely amazing ideas. Well, you could just be the variety of introvert that's called the outgoing introvert, because there's also such thing as a shy extrovert. And now shy extroverts are pretty rare, but I have met a couple of them. Basically, how a shy extrovert would look is one of those really awkward people that always shows up at youth groups, but never says a word. And it's not because they're annoyed or trying to fit in or that they just don't have enough to say. It's just because they crave that interaction with people. But at the same time, the definition of shyness is that you're afraid of social rejection. So I think the extrovert is fearful that they might say something that'll ruin everything. Whereas an outgoing introvert is that introvert that after they've had so much alone time, then they'll say, okay, I can't be alone forever. Let's go socialize. And then they do go socialize, and they're like the life of the party. They're cracking jokes all over the place. They're, keeping the conversation going, and they're engaging everyone. But they can only do it for so long before they just say, okay, that's enough. Time to crawl back to my hidey hole. Now, not all of them are that polite to be able to be open about it. But yeah, that definitely makes a lot more sense. Because you do seem like, now, I haven't seen you interact a whole lot, but based on the general format of your comments on my videos, and also how you act on Facebook, you seem like the type of person who prefers a lot of deep thought about things. Not to say extroverts can't think deeply, but they have a tendency to like have a limited capacity before the next new thing is exciting for them, and then they want to jump to that. Like my friends who are extroverted, a lot of times they, how do I word this? Because a lot of times it's hard for me to fathom that extroverts even exist, just because I don't see a world where I'm not pensive. But like my extroverted friends have a tendency to like get bored if they stay on one thing for too long. Like my friend Danielle, for example, she might have this really cool idea and she'll be really excited about it in the moment, but then a week later she'll forget about it and go on to something else. Or like we'll hang out and go on one path on one hangout and then she'll say, oh, let's go somewhere unique this time, or let's have a picnic. Now she's gotten a lot better at that in recent years. Like she's seen the value of nostalgia and she likes seeing me happy because I like going to familiar places. But at the same time, I think like if she's not around me, then she likes a good amount of variety in her life. So extroverts also like to keep moving, and if they think about something for too long, then that will also be draining for them because then they'll want to bounce their ideas off of someone and they won't want to just keep it in their head because that would be the equivalent of trying to block a hose. So, what how much have you studied personalities and psychology as much as I have? Because I'd like to hear your thoughts on like extroversion, introversion, human processing. Like if you have any thoughts on the human brain in general, I would love to hear it. So that's actually one of my favorite subjects to talk about besides video games and Catholicism is the human brain. Also, my throat needs a break, so that'll give you a chance to type a bit. Well, I guess history would teach you a little bit about how the human brain works. I studied history too, but I try not to put too much stock in it just because I think a lot of people get too focused on history and then as a result they like don't want to accept innovation, and I'm preaching to myself because I used to be one of those people that hated change. I hated the brand new and the unexplored. I would be that guy that back when the GameCube was coming out was like, why don't we just make more Nintendo 64 games? But nowadays I've come to the realization that improvement can be a good thing if it's good improvement. Interesting. Well, I have beginner's level knowledge of psychology, maybe more like intermediate just because of the way my brain works. So if you want to hear tips, just let me know. But like I said, because I've had trouble talking basically my whole life, I've had to study people extensively so that I don't make a total fool of myself. Are you saying because you're typing or because you're trying to figure out what I mean by having trouble speaking my whole life? Ah, gotcha. Game emulation. I I have a love-hate relationship with emulating because on one hand, I'm sorry if you felt ignored in there, Lunar Octopus. I did not mean to overshadow you. Well, I think game emulation in moderation can be good because if it weren't for emulation and hacking, we wouldn't have Sonic Mania, which is by far the best Sonic game. But on the other hand, some people emulate just because they're too lazy to go out and actually get the game. And also emulations, like a lot of times you bypass actual legal ways of obtaining the copies of the game. So I would say if you emulate on a copy of the game that you've already bought, as opposed to downloading a game that you should be buying. Avoiding arguments on holidays. No, you're not talking too much, Messy Art Desk. If anyone's not talking too much, or if anyone's talking too much, it's me. I actually prefer, on these streams, I prefer you guys to talk more than me. It's just that you can only type so fast, so it usually doesn't end up working. But basically, how to avoid arguments on holidays. Don't get involved. That's usually my strategy. Like, if I see that people are getting heated, I just decide that I'm going to back out, because getting angry in a situation is actually one of the worst things that you can do, which is why I say that of all the deadly sins, wrath is one of the worst, because wrath actually leads to more deadly sins, because in a rush of anger, your adrenaline is going really high. Now, obviously, adrenaline is good when you're using it to like continue exercising or to, say, save someone from a crisis. However, one of the downsides of too much adrenaline is that it has this sort of bulldozery, keep going type of feel to it. So while that's good when, say, you're trying to lift up a truck, and if at first it's too heavy, you're like, oh, I can't do it, the adrenaline will say, keep going. But with anger, the adrenaline prolongs the anger so that you keep wanting to yell. And then as you yell, your voice tends to raise in pitch, which as a result is harder for the male ear to detect. And also, if you try to aggressively punch something when you're angry, that also increases the adrenaline. So in other words, you're losing your ability to reason. And you're also losing the ability for the people that you're yelling at to comprehend what you're saying. And not only that, but a lot of times people don't want to listen to what people have to say anyway, if it's not something that they're interested in to begin with, or if they're doing something that's more interesting in your subject matter. So if you want to be angry at someone, you really don't want to do it when they're in the middle of something they're enjoying. Yeah, I would agree. Like, if there is a way that I could legally buy a version of Path of Radiance that doesn't require a memory card, I would do it. But I also don't like buying things on non-Nintendo systems just because I like Nintendo interfaces. So if you didn't understand what I was saying about how that relates to not arguing at holidays, step 1, don't get angry. Step 2, don't feel the need to step in if other people are starting an argument. 3, even if they're attacking your viewpoint, just still don't get involved, because just because you disagree with what they're saying doesn't mean you have to respond to it, because in that moment you're being emotionally charged, because it's not like you could prepare for them to attack your viewpoint. And when you're emotionally charged, that tends to like have a seesaw effect on your reasoning skills, where your reasoning skills go down. So as a result, if your reasoning skills are down and your emotions are high, then you'll do something that might end up actually being harmful, and it'll just make things worse. So what you should do instead is just listen. And then after you're more calm, maybe call the person, text them, Facebook message, and say, hey, you said something at the holiday that kind of bothered me. Do you think we could talk about it, like, over tea? At least that's what I would do. If you like coffee, then go for it. But, like, put it in a calm, tranquil environment that would likely allow your emotional state to be more balanced. Does that answer your question? Now, one kind of emulation I really like, Lunar Octopus, is Virtual Console. I've actually downloaded quite a few Virtual Console games. Have even repurchased games I already have, just because it's a lot more convenient to play them with save states, because I'm kind of terrible at a lot of old games. And also, growing up, I also had a time limit with a lot of my games. So being able to save anywhere is something that I've been begging for years. And now that it's available, I can probably enjoy them a lot more than I did back in the day. Yep, you got it. You got it. Absolutely. Just basically, a good rule of thumb in life in general is if you're emotional about something, don't act on it. Favorite old school video game console? You're going to have to define old school because I'm older than I look. So, um, for all that you know, I may consider the Wii to be old school. But I would say my favorite new console is the Switch, by far. Not because of the Joy-Cons, because of the convenience factor. It's more convenient to play it wherever you want, and it just has a lot of, um, has a lot of, it's hard to put into words off the top of my head, but I just like the UI. I like the convenience factor. I think I'd have to say the GameCube. I really liked the GameCube intro where the cube like makes a G logo. I really liked how the GameCube was such a huge leap off of the Nintendo 64, and a lot of the games were like criminally underrated on it. Of course, going back to them now, I can see why. But Twilight Princess is one of my favorite games. And when I played it on the Wii U in the HD version, they hardly changed anything. Same thing with Wind Waker HD. They changed what needed to be changed, but they didn't really add anything because Wind Waker was already a game good enough that it could have been released in 2013 on its own. But I think if I'm being brutally honest, I would say my favorite system besides the Switch is probably the Wii U, because the Wii U, it plays Wii games. It has a virtual console, which the GameCube doesn't. I also really like the gamepad. In fact, I actually have my Wii U right here. So here's the gamepad. It's a little bit dusty. I don't know why, because I play my Wii U more than most people do. And then I actually have my Wii U console right here. And I still love it to pieces. And you're probably wondering, why do you have a Wii U in your bedroom? Well, it's because you don't technically need... Hello, Daniel Davis. Welcome. You don't technically need a TV to play the Wii U. You just need to have this hooked into an outlet and then have your gamepad, and you can play your Wii U wherever you want. I also have, this is my new Nintendo 3DS with the Fire Emblem Fates cover. I'm showing you again because you guys didn't show up on time, but I got this for being one of the only people in the world to pre-order the Fire Emblem Fates Special Edition. Apparently, I had it really easy compared to most people. So, Daniel Davis, what kind of things do you like to do lately? Water just ran out, so I might be wrapping this up pretty soon just because I've been streaming for an hour and a half. Okay, here we go. Oh, here we go. Much better. Now, I like the Wii, but it just uses too much batteries for the Wii remote, and I think that's just too inconvenient. Basically, whatever system is the most convenient is the one that I'm going to do. But yeah, Daniel Davis, how are you? What kind of things do you like? I'm afraid I don't know about that meme that you're referring to. Could you explain, please? Wow, 5 people now. That's cool. Hi, Tiki. Welcome back. I'm not going to be going too much longer because my throat is starting to get sore, but I'm glad that you returned. So everyone, Haru changes her name a lot. I first knew her as Tiki, and we actually... Oh, hi, John Paul. Yeah, happy belated Thanksgiving to you, too. Okay, I guess I'll have to start my intros over again. So, John Paul, he and I met on a mission trip, and that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, was that trip. Haru, we met on another YouTuber stream. I think we might have met earlier, but like I said, she changes her name so much that I probably forgot. Lunar Octopus is a regular at my live streams. And then Messy Art Desk discovered one of my Catholic videos and then recommended my video on her Facebook community page. So that's how I know all of you guys. So I hope this can be a good avenue of conversation. What are Vans shoes? I'm afraid I've never heard of that. Yes, that is very cool. Oh, hello, Zoe. Well, like I said, I'm not going to be around too long, but I'm really glad that you could show up for a little bit. My throat is starting to really feel sore, so once it gets to the breaking point, that's when I'm going to get off of the stream. But how have you been doing so far? If you want to rewatch the stream from the beginning, I promise that it's mostly PG, with just a little bit of PG-13 elements, but mostly just because we talk about mature rated visual novels. Oh, that's who Dilly Bob is. So you were watching my stream? That's cool. Wow. Okay, wow. This is one of the biggest audiences I've ever had. So I really appreciate all of you guys a lot. I appreciate the likes too. And I've said this earlier in the stream, but I'm going to say it again for the people that showed up later. Yeah, you were here. You were here from pretty much the beginning, Tiki. That is great. But basically, for those of you that came late to the stream, the reason why I appreciate the likes is not because I particularly care about likes, but it's just a good way of showing, oh, glad you could come by for a little bit, John Paul. Have a wonderful Christmas parade. It shows that me blabbing to a camera isn't the worst thing in the world. Yeah, see you around, Messy Art Desk. Thank you for joining. All right, so where were we? Tiki, did you manage to get all your schoolwork done? And Zoe, well, Zoe, what have you been up to lately? I notice you don't comment on my videos a whole lot, so is there anything you'd like to add that maybe I can address? Oh, good. I was truly worried that I was distracting you from school, so I'm really glad to see that you managed to catch up all right. I'm also really sorry that I don't live stream that much. It's just because the move was complicated and streaming was really bad at my old house because I lived in the garage. Oh man, that stinks. But I hope you enjoy it, Tiki, because I would like to get into dance. It's just that, well, how do I word this? I would want to make sure that the person I danced with would be a decent person that I wouldn't, that they wouldn't abandon me after the dance. Oh, that's cool. Well, thank you, Zoe. If it's too hard for you to comment, don't feel like you have to push yourself, but just know that if you do go out of your way to do that, that really means a lot to me because I don't really get a whole lot of constructive criticism on my videos. And so, while I do have the right to say no if I think it's inauthentic, I do like hearing what you guys have to say just because maybe I didn't consider a certain angle that you guys might have. But I'm really glad you like my Myers-Briggs videos. Would you like me to make more or less of a certain type, or is there like a new style that you'd like to suggest? So Tiki, when you say dance, Do you dance with people, or are you just doing like tap dancing or something like that? Oh, yeah. Well, that's okay. We don't need to go into detail. Yeah, I used to really like swing dancing a lot, and I mainly did it just because I had nothing better to do. Oh, I see. So you have a whole bunch of dancing things. Well, if there's ever a chance that we meet up, I can teach you a thing or two about swing dancing if I review the code of conduct rules. But yeah, I really hope that you have a chance to um, find something that you're more not so miserable at, because I don't really like it when I'm at a swing dancing event or any kind of dance and the girls there just look like they're having their worst nightmare. I really wish that when people are dancing, they're like fully enjoying themselves. Because it makes it really hard to ask someone to dance, because then it's like, are you just sad because you have that poker face? Or are you sad because you don't want to dance or because no one's asking you to dance? It's just too confusing. Oh, well, thank you, Zoe. I really like your feedback. Yeah, that's true. Not only is it less common, but it's practically non-existent. Like I've tried to look for other ISTJs on YouTube that talk about our type, and I found like maybe one other, and he hasn't made nearly as much videos as I have. And I also don't think he talks about ISTJs in particular. He's more of just like, hey, I'm an ISTJ, here's my perspective. So I'll definitely keep that up. Alrighty, guys. I think I need to wrap it up. My throat's getting a bit sore, so I'll ask. Yeah, yeah, I definitely think that would be a good idea, Tiki, because you don't want to wear yourself out. So I'll ask one more question to each of you, and then that'll be like a good wrapping up point. And I'll just type it to give my throat a break. So, so after I answered both of those questions, then I'm gonna wrap up the stream. So there you guys go. Your time to shine. Oh, you're heading out, Tiki? Oh, all right. Well, well, thank you for sticking around as long as you did. I really appreciate it. Oh my gosh, Lunar Octopus reviews are pretty much all that I do. So I have tons and tons of reviews. Just check out my video game reviews playlist. Okay, yeah, not a problem, Zoe. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the extra effort. All right, guys. Well, that about wraps it up. Thank you so much for all of your support. 6 likes is huge for someone that's as small of a YouTuber as me. So, again, thank you very much. I I'm actually kind of speechless by how great you guys have been to me today. And I'm really glad that I chose to do this instead of taking a walk. So, again, thank you. I apologize if any of you felt overshadowed or if I talked too much, but I still really appreciate every single one of you being here. And I do hope that I'll continue making content that you really enjoy. So with that, thank you for watching. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless. And Lunar Octopus, I hope you really like my new reviews because I have a capture card now, so they should be leagues better than my old ones. Bye-bye.